And hello, everybody. Welcome back. You know us by now. He's Josh McCauley. My name is Mike Nino. We've got some NBA free agency recap to get into. Free agent signings could be made official today. The moratorium is over. And there has been a lot of moves to be made so far this offseason. There's been sign and trades, free agent signings, and even players just randomly going back to their own team for no reason. So we will get into all of that as we go along. I'm sure many people have already followed along with much of the news already. But let's run right into it right now. Let's start off with the top two players in the quote-unquote free agency, who is Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, both from Golden State last year, both won the title. Both staying with Golden State, agreed on new deals. Was for a lot of money, a new record in the NBA for Steph Curry's deal for 5 years, $201 million. He's the highest paid player now in the NBA. Thank God, because I was sick of it being Mike Conley. And then Kevin Durant also gets paid a 2-year, $53 million contract, both going back to Golden State. And Josh, this was kind of just a formality. We knew they were both going to go back.
Yeah, I mean, there was no chance anything else happened. It's really weird that people are ripping on Kevin Durant for taking less money, because all we seemingly talk about is when a star player takes everything that they've earned, how, they could have taken less money, put the team first. Carmelo got that when he re-signed. Why didn't Melo take less money? Now the Knicks are going to be capped out forever. So when Durant does take less money, now people are claiming, well, the NBA is dead and the Players Association is going to be pissed because he's going to set a bad precedent, yada, yada, yada. Look, the guys earn the right to get every penny he can, and he wants to keep that team competitive. And he let them keep Livingston. He let them keep Iguodala. So I'm not going to blame him. If anything, I think we could turn around on Steph Curry and say, hey, Steph, you took
Why didn't you do this?
You took every single penny you could. Why? You could have helped the team remain just as competitive, and that way Kevin wouldn't have had to have taken as big of a pay cut. Yeah, I mean, that's really that. I think it's kind of a joke that, at least for now, Steph Curry has the biggest contract in NBA history. You look at the landscape of the NBA right now, he's not the guy I would have given it to. Obviously, the Warriors were going to give him whatever he wanted, but it's weird in a league with LeBron James and Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant being on the same team, that Steph Curry is the guy who breaks the mark set by Mike Conley. So two guys who I would not have given the biggest contracts ever to have the dubious distinction of 1 and 2. But we'll see how long that lasts.
And here's the thing, because of the fact of the only reason Mike Conley was the top paid player in the NBA last year was based on the fact of the TV deal. All right, go ahead. Just leave, I guess.
I'm here. I was closing the door. I'm here.
Okay. So the reason that the Mike Conley got the biggest deal was based on that TV deal that went into effect last year, which raised the cap so much money. This year, there was still plenty of money left, and cap being raised. There was even a little less than expected. Celtics kind of have run into some issues with that, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But that's one of the main reasons Steph is the number one player paid in the NBA right now, is because of those extra cap space that teams are having right now. It's kind of washed up now, so there's not really going to be much left for teams next year, which will be interesting, because that's when the Russell Westbrook, the LeBron Jameses, the Paul Georges of the world are back on the free agency market, and we'll see if they have the option to. So we'll see if they actually go. That's when it'll get interesting. That's when teams will really be locked in as to how much they can actually spend, because there won't be much left to really go.
Yeah, it's going to get really interesting, and I think we're in the era of this supermax now, so we'll see, how judiciously it's applied. Obviously, the guy who fought for it, Chris Paul, the union president, is going to be up for it himself. He was up for it this year, and he found a way around it to delay it a year. So we'll see if the guy who fought for it parlays it next year, but more on him later.
All right, so let's keep going down. Do we want to stay with the Warriors because they made a few other moves that I absolutely love?
I love them for basketball reasons. I hate them as a fan of the NBA.
So the Warriors, after also getting Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, they realized their situation is in the factor of they can't spend much money at all. They can pretty much give veteran minimums to pretty much anybody they can to be able to fill out the rest of their roster. And that's what they've been doing with good players that will be good for their team. Yeah. One player was Omri Caspi. Andre Iguodala is going back on a restructured deal, 3 years, $48 million. Shaun Livingston's going back. Who else is going back? I'm leaving the last one for last, and you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know you're talking about. I think that's it so far. David West is back.
David West is back. And that's it, right? Except for this last guy?
Except for that last guy. I mean, still waiting on him to add a center, but that's something, they'll bring Pachulia or McGee back at the veterans
right.
minimum.
They can only choose one, so it's really about who would they prefer. I would assume Pachulia myself, but that's just me. And they also got Swaggy P on a 1 year, $5.2 million. Nick Young from LA. So they now have 3 guys who shot 40% from 3 last year, even after shooting 400 attempts from 3. So it's going to be a lot more shooting as well for the Warriors this season. But they're locked and loaded and back and ready to go, and I'm almost ready to just hand them the title right now.
I mean, yeah, we're gonna have. It's a similar situation we were in with the Heatles a couple of years ago. Guys are gonna take less money to chase a championship, and the Warriors have very specific needs, and they're going after those needs. Mentioned Swaggy Pete, made 178 threes last year. He's being added to a team that, in terms of catch and shoot looks, is probably best in the NBA, and that's really where he excels. And Omri Caspi is a very underrated all-around player. I believe the only NBA player that has a segment on the radio every day about him and his exploits in Israel when I was over there. Every day there's a 5-minute segment on the radio about Omri Caspi, which is pretty cool.
You alive? Well, Josh is dead. Connection, internet is crazy. So, moving on to you alive, Josh, or no? No, he's not alive. He's dead. All my friends are dead. Moving on to the next player in the free agency market that really we'll see how this goes is Blake Griffin is going back to the Los Angeles Clippers. And for that deal, he is getting 5 years, $173 million to go back to the LA Clippers, which is pretty much the only reason he would go back is for the money and just for the love of LA. And that's exactly what he's doing because everybody else left. So that will be really where he's going to spend the rest of his career will be Blake Griffin in LA because overall they have nothing. Oh, you're back.
Oh, see, I thought you had gone. All right, that was weird. Is my camera working? No, what the heck?
I see you.
Oh, you see me? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Oh, well.
Okay. Anyway.
Oh, you're now on 2 things, and it's going to give feedback.
Hang on. There we go.
All right.
Okay.
So I was starting to mention the next really signing in free agency, which would be I went with over to Blake Griffin in LA, opted out of his deal along with Chris Paul, but then decided to go back 5 years, $173 million. Really just wanted to stay there, didn't want to jump ship on Doc Rivers or anything like that. Even though Chris Paul was out, he decided to go back for the money. It's a lot of money. So, Josh, Blake Griffin he's probably a Clipper for life.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I thought it was confusing. I thought he was one of those guys that was going to wait until the domino that we'll get to soon in Gordon Hayward fell. You know, the Clippers obviously.
You died again. Josh. Well, he's dead. So as he was starting to say, we thought Blake Griffin would be one of those guys to really wait around, set the market, wait for the market to be set, and then get the best deal possible on a team where you can win. And obviously that's not going to happen with the Clippers because of the fact that Chris Paul is gone. Also, just saying this is the issue that we have when I'm in Massachusetts, he's in New Jersey, and Wi-Fi is not good apparently. So Josh will hopefully be back with us soon. But Blake Griffin going really just shows exactly how much he's just going to stay with that team. I don't see him leaving at all. But Blake Griffin. So we'll wait for Josh to come back. Blake Griffin. A lot of people were saying that he should look. Waiting for people to join this call. Josh is coming back, and there he is again.
I don't know what's going on. Anyway.
So anyways, I was starting to say how Blake Griffin was one of those players that you were starting to say was going to wait for somebody to set the market and get the best money in the best situation.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you know, Chris Paul gone. The Clippers have gone from being a lock for a top 4 seed to a 6, a 7. Obviously, they made some nice moves to save them going forward. Certainly, I don't think a championship caliber team. But, yeah, I thought he was going to wait to see what happened with Gordon Hayward. If Boston had missed out, he could have been an option there. I think, I mean, we'll get to it in a little bit. I think he was the better option regardless. You know, Miami, when they missed out, another situation that I think potentially could be better than the Clipper situation, especially given the gutting of the East that happened this past offseason. I honestly thought he was going to wait, especially with that standing offer on the table from the Clippers. He didn't. Is it about the money? Is it about the comfort level? I don't know, but it's certainly not about the winning, it would appear.
Right. And, you know, you were starting to get to the fact that they are starting to get some of those players back after, you know, losing Chris Paul and things like that. One player I thought was a very, very interesting signing because they also lost a lot was Milos Teodosic out of Croatia.
Croatia being regarded as the best passer in the world. So
yeah, best passer in the world, and he's just stepping onto an NBA court. 30 years old. He is your flashy point guard that everybody loves, that everybody thinks of when they think of point guard from Spain or Europe. You're going to think of flashy point guard that can pass, and that's what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, from what I hear, he's Fran Fraschilla is the big name when it comes to international prospects. He's the go-to guy. He said this guy is going to operate incredibly well in the pick and roll with DeAndre Jordan, with Blake Griffin, picking and popping with Danilo Gallinari, another guy we'll get to soon. It's from everything I hear, he's the best fit to run the point, especially considering the other point options on the Clippers now maybe aren't the best. Austin Rivers cannot run an NBA offense. Cat Beverly is a good 3-and-D player, but he's not the best when it comes to setting up his teammates. So, it's a good gamble for a team. 2 years, they didn't really commit all that much money for a team that is kind of stuck. I mean, they're going to be a playoff team, but they're, further and further away from the top. I mean, they might be the 6th or 7th best team in the West. So, they're lining themselves up for a first-round matchup with, like, San Antonio, and they're going to get, flummoxed. It was a low risk, high reward signing. It doesn't make them that much better. That's really all you can say about them. Something they had to do. They had to bring another point guard.
All right, so moving on to quite possibly the most drama surrounding a free agent was Gordon Hayward. Coming from Utah, he's going to Boston. Wait, no, he hasn't told anybody yet. He doesn't know where he's going. Then he officially says it on the Players Tribune that Gordon Hayward's signing with Boston, 4-year deal, about $130 million, give or take a few. But now he will be joining the Celtics, getting back with his former college coach, Brad Stevens, out of Butler. And he said that was pretty much the main reason he came, was because Stevens helped him get from Butler to the NBA. Now he wants to go back to him. Now for Hayward, I could have seen him going back to the Jazz or the Celtics. Both would have been good fits for him. Mm-hmm. For the Jazz, it would have been, you're staying home, you already have a family there, you already love it there. You need some more pieces because the West is just insanely good right now. But give it 5 years and you might win a championship. Around 27 years old right now, he'd be near the end of his next deal. And so, but then he decides, I'm going to go to Brad Stevens. Love the system already that he has there. Love the pieces already. Love the future that Boston might have. Also already having Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Gordon Hayward coming to Boston now. It's going to work out, I believe. Personally, as a Celtics fan, it's a good fit for him. He's going to fit well in this offense. I'm not going to say that the Celtics are going to go off and win the title. I'm not going to say that they're going to go win the East now, but it does make the Celtics better. And I am quite pleased to see Gordon Hayward come to the Celtics.
This is probably going to be a pretty unpopular take. I think it was one of the dumber moves of free agency on both sides, personally. For Hayward, I think the foundational pieces that Utah had are better. Now, obviously, Boston has all the draft picks and the rookie in Tatum and everything. These are either unproven assets in Tatum or unused assets in the picks. We have no idea what they're going to become. We just don't know. Look at what Utah has. They got the point guard you want in Ricky Rubio. Joe Ingles is back on a lot smaller of a deal than I thought he was going to get. Rudy Gobert is arguably a top 3 center in the NBA. That piece is there. You had a nice veteran piece in Joe Johnson and Boris Diaw, and they still had some room to bring in some other pieces. So I thought the fit was better in terms of pieces that are already established. You know what they are in Utah. Look at Boston. First of all, the collateral damage for the Celtics of this from this move is going to be painful. It's going to be very painful. Jay Crowder, who's on one of the best deals in the NBA, is probably gone. If not, Avery Bradley's probably gone, or Marcus Smart. One of those 3 pieces has to go because as of right now, it's a verbal agreement. They don't have the cap space to do it. Whoever you move is going to hurt. And yes, this brings in a second consistent outside scorer, but the bigger issue for the Celtics team was defensive rebounding and a presence around the rim that Al Horford just doesn't provide. They could have found someone who does the same things as Gordon Hayward, just not as well, for cheaper, and still gone after Blake. I thought what would have been the smarter move if I was the Celtics was get Blake Griffin here, whatever you got to do to get him here, and then sign and trade for Danilo Gallinari, because Gallinari can play power forward at times. Gordon Hayward cannot. Gallinari is a similar shooter when it comes to offensive profile, and he was going to be cheaper. He wasn't going to cost you that much collateral when it came to now you have to trade someone to get Hayward of significant value, and Blake Griffin would have addressed your biggest issue, which was defensive rebounding and a low post presence. And you know what? You want to go positionless basketball? You want to go small ball at points? If you see Golden State in the finals, or if you see Cleveland in the Eastern Conference Finals, Gallo at the 4, Blake Griffin at the 5 for small stretches would have been something very, very interesting to see, and something we're not going to get to see. So, look, I understand the star power. Hayward's an underrated defensive player, but I think the collateral damage and what they could have done makes this move less palpable for me. I understand everyone's excited. Look, they're still probably going to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. They're still head and shoulders below Cleveland and even more heads and shoulders below Golden State. I'm fine that they made the move. I think there was a better way to address all of their needs at a cheaper price. Because, look, they're paying Hayward $34 million a year. They could have had Blake Griffin and Danilo Gallinari probably all in right at 45, 46, not have lost as many assets as they're probably going to have to lose. And you know what? The biggest thing, Hayward's got a player option for the 4th year. Cleveland, depending on what happens, might not be gone for 2 or 3 more years. So by the time your window is wide open, you're going to be the beast of the East. Hayward's going to opt out. Might he come back? Probably, but who knows? So I wasn't as high on the move as everyone else.
And so I get everything you're saying, and as nice as it would have been to get, Blake Griffin and Danilo Gallinari, I don't think Blake Griffin even thought about going to another team. I know he opted out, but I think personally that the whole time he was thinking, I'm going to go back for the most amount of money. Obviously, the Celtics couldn't give him 173 for 5 years, but the fit for Blake, the factor of getting rid of people for Gordon Hayward, they were going to have to get rid of players anyway because of the fact that they drafted Jason Tatum. And when you have to give players away, you're okay with getting rid of Jay Crowder. You're okay with getting rid of an expiring deal of Avery Bradley. You have 2 players who you can find a lot of deficiencies with their games. Yes, there's a lot of bright spots, but there's still a lot of deficiencies. There's no question about it. But when you think about, does this player make your team better? It's a 100% answer of yes, based on the fact of who he is and how deep the Celtics still are, even with getting rid of one of those players. Getting rid of Jay Crowder is pretty much a no worries whatsoever. That won't cause any issues with this team because you already brought in another small forward in Gordon Hayward and another small forward who can play the 4 in Jason Tatum. So you have those 2 guys who will grow together, along with Jaylen Brown, who you already have last year, to fill in for the role that Jay Crowder, who already was losing minutes at the end of the last year, was going to try to fulfill, but you're going to already get better with Hayward as it is. I like the idea of Griffin and Gallinari, but I just think Griffin's mind was set already before they could even think about getting it.
Well, then if not Griffin, a guy who ended up actually moving, and it looks like he was going to move the entire time, Paul Millsap. Also is better on the boards. I mean, look, are they better? Yes. Are they astronomically better with Gordon Hayward? No, they're not.
And so one of the deals, thinking about the future for the Celtics, because even if he stays in Utah on a 4 or 5 year deal, it's still going to be the same. He's still not going to be able to win a championship because the Warriors and then underneath them are the Spurs are still there waiting to win. They won't beat them for the next 3 or 4 years. So that 4-year window with LeBron possibly staying, possibly leaving, I'm okay with that because of the fact that the West is still so powerful. I can understand why he came. But the factor of next year is the real important part for the Celtics. There was talks about signing trades or making a deal with Marc Gasol. I don't think that's going to happen personally. I don't see how that could work out. Money-wise, would it be a good fit? Absolutely. But I don't see it's going to work out. But the next draft, next year, 2018, there's a lot of big-time talent at the forward position, like DeAndre Ayton. What?
Michael Porter?
Michael Porter, he's a small forward, so the Celtics probably won't go get him. You have Bamba or something like that. Now I'm blanking on names, of course, right when I'm trying to make my point. I'm blanking on names. But what I'm trying to say is the Celtics, they're looking to next year, is my personal opinion, because they know they're not going to win this year. So if you look to next year and you look on a mock draft for next year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the top 7 players in a mock draft right now are power forwards and centers. So it's a very tall built draft down low. There's even Miles Bridges who can play the 4 if you need to be in a small situation. But that's what I think the Celtics are looking for, because you still have the Nets pick. You might have the Lakers pick 2 through 5. So that's another explanation for why you trade down from 1 to 3. You save a little cap space. Why you trade for next year's pick for the Lakers, because that'll be cheaper than going out to get a big guy like Marc Gasol right now. So moving on, you started mentioning him already. Paul Millsap wanted to stay with the Atlanta Hawks, but then decided not going to work here at all. I'm moving on. So he goes to the Denver Nuggets. I personally question this move. 3 years for $90 million. I wouldn't have questioned it if Danilo Gallinari stayed, but he's going. And so with Paul Millsap in Denver now, it's a little bit of just it's a question mark to me because I don't know what he sees in this team to decide that's where I'm going to go spend my next 3 years.
Well, I mean, Atlanta didn't even make him an offer, and I think they finally understand that, going to the playoffs every year as a 5 seed and not getting out of the first round.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, you just get a little bored of it. Personally, I like the fit in Denver. From Denver's perspective, it makes them a legitimate free agent destination. All it takes is that first domino to fall. Because before that, hey, they were this young team with the potential to be building something, but, they're not really a legitimate spot where a star caliber player wants to go play. Millsap just kicked down the door and said, well, maybe not. So going forward, it certainly makes them a legitimate free agent destination. Are they in? Do they have too many power forwards? Yeah, they do. I mean, not Moutier. The Manimal is probably gonna have to move. They added Tyler Lydon, a stretch 4. There's a lot of moving pieces, but what Millsap does is he's gonna be able to cover Jokic's defensive lapses. Jokic is not the best defensive player. Millsap is significantly better. And while Jokic is bringing the ball up as a point forward, Millsap's a guy who could be setting screens or operating in the low post area. And what it does is it gives them a consistent back to the basket mid-range score on a team that has a lot of run and gun pieces that like to shoot from the outside. Gary Harris is a guy likes to shoot from the outside. Jamal Murray, pair those with a guy like Jokic who can kind of do a little bit of everything, a guy like Millsap who's back to the basket mid-range, and then a guy with a high motor and Emmanuel Mudiay who's just going to drive the lane. That's a nice fit. I mean, that's a nice team. In Mike Malone's offensive system, they're building something there, but specifically what it does is it gives Denver legitimacy and credibility going into next year where there are going to be some big-time free agents. Now, I'm not saying LeBron James is taking his talents to Denver, Paul George isn't, but there are other free agents who maybe look at this and say, maybe there's something there. And certainly they have more assets they can consolidate. We know they made a monster offer for Paul George at the deadline last year. The only reason that didn't go through was because they got cold feet because they didn't think he was going to re-sign, and they said it's not worth the rental. But, if there's another star kind of player who has a couple years left on his deal, who, might be out, that's something they can look at. Certainly, if we want to start the rumor mill now, let's say LeBron leaves next year, Kyrie says he wants out. Denver is one of the few teams that has the assets that could get it done. Right. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but they're one of the few teams that has the assets that could get something done. So I think basketball-wise, good fit, and the biggest piece is giving legitimacy to Denver as an up-and-coming contender. I wish they had kept Gallo. I thought he was a good fit for him at small forward, but the trade-off, I mean, they clearly upgraded, and I think they upgraded in a more important position.
And not to mention, they also got Trey Lyles at the draft. So that's another.
So many freaking power forwards.
That's another. That's the question that I have with this move is because you go Paul Millsap, you got Tyler Lydon. You said already the stretch 4. He's probably going to be on the bench if he even starts up in the NBA. He could be in the G League, not the D League, the G League. But it's very stacked around there. You already have the Manimal. You already have Jokic.
Jokic, yep.
I am very proud of you, by the way.
I did it.
Got it right first.
I did my research this time.
Also, the Utah Jazz and the Boston Celtics are playing in the Summer League right now. So
awkward.
There was a lot of boos for the Celtics in this game. I mean, I don't think personally that it was a good move. Just overall, Denver. The factor that you say of, that first piece to sign with the team, that's very important. And I understand that. That's what Al Horford was for the Celtics. Mm-hmm. But so I see that. The fit with how many players are there already makes me question it. But, I mean, we'll see how it goes in the next few years because they are setting themselves up fairly well.
Yeah, I mean, clearly they're not done. And at the deadline, I fully expect them to go all in on
Yeah.
some piece. I don't know what that piece is, but a small forward, I mean, they've got the pieces that there are very few players that wouldn't be an option for them.
So we're going to do a little bit of a tandem right here. The next two players, we already did a tandem with Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, but the next two, this is huge for Toronto. Going above the border, Kyle Lowry and Serge Ibaka both re-signing with that team, keeping the nucleus together. You already have DeRozan as well. So, I mean, if I'm the Raptors, I'm happy. You know, you're going to have to battle with the Washington Wizards. You're going to have to battle with the Celtics. You're going to have to battle with the Cavaliers. But you definitely kept yourself in a good shape picking up these two contracts. Now, financially, doesn't set you up well for the future. It's going to cost a lot. It costs a lot of money to keep these two people, these two players. But overall, as a team, it's a good sign for the Rockets saying that they're ready to go.
Yeah.
Not Rockets, sorry, Raptors.
The Raptors. I knew they were going to go down this route. Personally, if I was the GM, I wouldn't have, because, you know, at the very best, they're probably the fifth best team in the East right now. I mean, you got Cleveland, then, you know, a little bit of a drop off to Boston. I think Washington is right there with Boston, and then I think Milwaukee, after kind of a down year, is going to be surging forward, especially, you know, if they have a couple moves up their sleeves potentially in terms of another point guard to pair with Malcolm Brogdon. So for Toronto, I mean, you're capped out for the foreseeable future and into the future as the fifth best team in the East. And then, you know, there are a couple teams that give it a year or two are going to be nipping on their heels. You know, we'll have to see what Detroit does with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, but they've made some nice moves. They've been inconsistent, but we'll see what happens. You know, Pat Riley is always a threat to turn Miami into a contender overnight because of his just the draw of playing in South Beach and the no state income tax. And then, hey, you know what? If everyone stays healthy, let's see what the process can do.
Right.
Toronto is going to have an aging, expensive core at exactly the wrong time when some teams, Charlotte as well, you know, we'll see what these teams can do. They're still a playoff team. You know, they're probably going to be a 4 or 5 seed. They got no shot if they run into, you know, the Cleveland Cavaliers or the Boston Celtics, or even the Wizards maybe in the second round. So I expected them to do it. I personally wouldn't have done it because, again, you're not going to win for 5 years at the least. You're not getting past Cleveland. And then, oh, yeah, there's the Golden State Warriors. So, I mean, really, if I'm an NBA team, I'm not trying to win right now unless I'm the Warriors or the Cavaliers. There's just no point. But obviously, you have to do that.
I mean, according to Mark Cuban, sometimes you don't. But that's a different story. The next player I'm going to go to, switching teams, you know, this is another reason I thought Blake Griffin wasn't really that smart for going back to the Clippers. JJ Redick is gone too. Your spot shooter, the shooting guard. He's trusting the process. He's going to Philly. I tweeted out like about a day before JJ Redick signed, and I was like, he's going to get paid big time, overpaid. And that's what he did. A 1-year deal for $23 million for JJ Redick, who is just a spot shooter, doesn't really do much else. But that's how important it is for this Philly team. You get that veteran leader who has been there a long time. He knows how to win. He knows how to play. And he can help a lot with that young team in Philly. And he can knock down a bunch of threes without even looking. So for Philly, I love the signing. For JJ, great choice. And, you know, call me crazy, but Philly might be coming up as the second best team in the Atlantic Division.
Yeah, I mean, that's not that hard to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Bad. Hey, great fit. I mean, look, if Fultz is bringing the ball up, they can both drain Redick a little bit more. If Simmons is bringing the ball up, that's something you have to respect. Simmons not a great jump shooter. Redick is. So, you know, off-ball screens, even, you know, it's not necessarily a pick and roll, but little switches like that in the backcourt. And, yeah, you overpaid him, but it's kind of the same thing with Denver. You know, you've put yourself in a position where you're trying to make yourself attractive going forward as you're trying to build something. JJ, I don't think is as big a piece as Paul Millsap, but he's that first guy to be like, okay, maybe there's something happening here. And you know what? The East is just bad enough that if these guys are healthy, Philly could sneak in as a 7 or 8 seed this year, and that's just going to give them more legitimacy going forward.
You know how the past few years we've been saying, the Bucks and who's the other team that we've been
Minnesota.
saying?
Minnesota.
Oh, man. Well, we'll get to them. We're going to start going team by team because we got through the big names. We're going to start going team by team a little bit, might group it all together. But this Philly team, man, you look at them 3-4 years down the road, 5 years down the road, it's going to be intense. So let's group it team by team for now. The restricted free agents are another deal that we'll get into in a little bit, probably next week, actually, because that's a whole other deal. Otto Porter. I'm trying to think of the rest of the players that I thought of when I was thinking of restricted free agents. There's Otto Porter.
He's the only one.
Caldwell Pope.
He's the only one who's gotten an offer so far. So, I mean, the Wizards are on the clock. They have until – we're recording this Thursday. They have until Saturday night.
Okay.
They said they're going to match it. It's going to make him his highest paid player. So that's that. But, the rest of the restricted free agents haven't gotten offers yet, at least as of now.
And, restricted free agents are always tough in the NBA because you have to have them sign the offer sheet. Then you have to go back to the team that he's on right now and be like, hey, do you want to match this? And if not, then he goes, or there's the qualifying offer. That came into effect with Kelly Olynyk with the Celtics. Celtics didn't have enough money anymore to hold that restricted free agent tag over him, hold the qualifying offer over him because of the fact that they went out and signed Gordon Hayward. And then he left because he was now an unrestricted free agent and then signed with Miami. Big money, by the way. 4-year.
More than he's worth.
Oh, of course he is, but, he's the clinic, so it's all right. The Atlanta Hawks, let's start off with them. Let's just go down the line. Atlanta Hawks players added via the draft. John Collins was a big-time name coming out of the draft. Josh, if you want to look on the link, I am player movement 2017-18 season, ESPN. Via trade, they also got Marco Bellinelli. Jamal Crawford is expected to go there, correct?
Yeah, he's probably going to get bought out.
Yeah, so he's going to go there, get bought out, and one team he's actually looking at is the Celtics, which I don't believe is going to happen, but just something to know. But they were a part of that 3-team sign and trade for Danilo Gallinari. Then there's also Miles Plumlee they got from Charlotte and Diamond Stone. Lost out on Jose Calderon going to Cleveland, Paul Millsap going to Denver. Dwight Howard is gone, Ryan Kelly is gone, and Mike Dunleavy was waived. So I think you said this a little bit earlier, Josh. The Hawks are going to start from scratch a little bit now.
Yeah, finally.
It took them 10 years too long. Boston, we've already mentioned them. Tatum, Zizic, Semi Ojeleye, Kadeem Allen, Jabari Bird, all from the draft. Gordon Hayward. Daniel Theis is the guy I love out of Germany. Can really stretch the floor and play down low. That's why they signed him. Lost Amir Johnson. That's where all this issue is coming from because they lost Amir Johnson, so they don't have anybody to rebound the ball. Well, we'll see how that goes. And they also had to waive Tyler Zeller, and we'll see what happens with Jay Crowder or something like that.
I mean, my problem is the biggest Boston addition is not even on there. From Dayton University, Scoochie Smith that's the biggest addition.
Well, he's not even an addition. He's on the summer league team.
Hey, you know what? I count that. He's part of the organization.
All right, he's wearing the Celtics jersey currently. I'm looking at him right now.
There we go.
So the Brooklyn Nets, trash. Via draft, Jarrett Allen out of Texas, Timofey Mozgov, D'Angelo Russell, and they traded away their centerpiece, Brook Lopez. We thinking a bottom 5 team again, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I like the moves. They finally gave themselves a direction. They can absorb the Mozgov cap hit. It's not going to really do anything. Russell's going to get a chance away from the limelight and the pressure to really just focus on playing ball. And I like Jarrett Allen. I didn't think he was going to slip to 22. I think that's a nice – those are 2 solid pieces going forward. So they have a direction. Yeah, they're still going to stink, but they have a direction at least. They didn't have that before.
Right. Moving on to the next team, you started to mention how this is one of those teams that's kind of screwed financially And when you look into the future, they're going to have a lot of older players. The Charlotte Hornets drafted Malik Monk. Then they went out and traded for Dwight Howard at the draft, and they got Michael Carter-Williams, traded away Marco Bellinelli, and Miles Plumlee. So this is just another team, Josh, you were saying. They're getting older, except for Malik Monk. They're getting older, having to spend a lot more money for no reason in a weak Eastern Conference.
Yeah, they set themselves up to be like a 4 or 5 seed next year if Monk plays well and Howard regains something. But yeah, I mean, going forward, it's hard to see a really bright future, 5 years down the road.
Chicago Bulls are next in the draft. Lauri Markkanen, you love him. So do I. Via free agency, they held on to Cristiano Felicio. They took Justin Holiday from New York. And they also traded for Chris Dunn and Zach LaVine, of course, trading away Jimmy Butler. This is the big talk in the draft. We already had a whole pretty much podcast about this. Michael Carter-Williams gone. Rondo is waived. And Isaiah Canaan is gone as well. But they're setting themselves up for the future. This is another team that sets themselves up in the East for the future.
Yeah, I mean, look, in one night they acquired 3 starters for next year. Dunn's going to be a starter. Markkanen will be a starter. And then whenever he gets back, Zach LaVine is probably the more accomplished of the group. They're going full tank, and they're going for a top pick next year in a pretty deep forward draft. The only thing I'm waiting on is when Dwayne Wade gets bought out, because I fully anticipate he'll be in Cleveland by the time the season starts.
I agree. Speaking of Cleveland, they're next. No draft picks, of course. Via free agency, Jose Calderon and Kyle Korver was re-signed. So you get a backup point guard to go behind Kyrie. Kyle Korver comes back, and you didn't lose anybody. And you still waiting on Wade. So they are just looking to win it again.
Yeah. I mean, either Wade or see what happens with Carmelo, maybe Jamal Crawford if he gets bought out. But, I mean, those are the only additions they'd be making. And certainly that would make the team better, but they haven't – their only chance to stay close to Golden State was – getting Butler or George, and apparently David Griffin was on the precipice of acquiring one of them. The 3-team deal they were talking with Denver and Indiana. Denver actually was the only team really that had an interest in acquiring Kevin Love. The problem is they just couldn't come up with the other draft picks necessary from Denver to entice Indiana into it. That was their only shot, and they missed out on both. So, I mean, they're probably going to the finals again for the 4th year in a row. I don't anticipate them winning. Barring something crazy. Standing pat was not – they had to go home run or bust, and unfortunately they didn't hit the home run.
Right. Moving on to Dallas, the Mavericks drafted Dennis Smith Jr. with one of the top picks in the draft and made official today one of the top signings of the year. I don't care who says otherwise. Dirk Nowitzki coming back. Making it official today to the Dallas Mavericks. Didn't really lose out on anybody, but, Dirk is back for 2 more years, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, I mean, $5 million. Wow. I mean, Dirk – no one gives Dirk crap for taking less money than he's worth. I mean, Dirk's still worth $20 million a year. He really is. They're being linked to Derrick Rose, which I think would be a tremendous mistake. I think you got to let Dennis Smith take over from day one. You can't. I think you have to bring in a veteran point guard, but certainly not a guy who's going to command as much attention and the ball as Derrick Rose. They got pieces. We got to see what happens with Nerlens Noel. Harrison Barnes is a nice piece. They clearly understand that they're not a contender anymore, and I think they're going to let Dirk ride out in the sunset and hope for a top pick next year where there's some talent to be had.
Also, update: Utah Jazz defeat the Boston Celtics 68-65 in the final game of the Utah Jazz Summer League. So there's that. For all that matters, the Denver Nuggets, they've done a lot this offseason. They, of course, traded away Gallinari. They already took in Lyles at the draft. They signed Paul Millsap, Tyler Lydon, another guy. All right, let's just skip over Denver. We already talked about them. If that's all right with you.
What's up?
I said we'll skip over Denver.
Yeah, that's fine. We talked about it.
Detroit Pistons. Luke Kennard, drafted number 12. They signed Langston Galloway from Sacramento. And they're still waiting on restricted free agent Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. So they're pretty much in the same spot they were last year.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how much of a financial commitment they're willing to make to Kentavious. I thought Kennard was a great draft pick. Other than that, they're standing pat, which I think they just underachieved last year. I think they're in a position to be a playoff team again.
The Golden State Warriors low-key got better this offseason, which I didn't think was possible. But they got rid of absolutely nobody. They didn't lose anybody. They brought back David West, Sean Livingston, Andre Iguodala, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry. They signed Omri Caspi and Nick Young, and they drafted Jordan Bell with a fantastic pick late in the second round. And I would not want to play them at all next year.
Yeah, nope, I would not. I would not. It's
it's not even going to be fair.
It's not. I mean, 69, 70 wins, something like that. I mean, this is
low-key 71 wins.
Is a little ridiculous, to be honest. Yeah, that's what it is.
So, moving on, the Houston Rockets have been quite busy this offseason, all in pretty much one trade, or two trades even. You trade away – everybody's going to the Clippers, of course, except for anybody who gets bought out. Patrick Beverley, Sam Decker, Montrezl Harrell, Deron Hillard, DeAndre Liggins, Lou Williams, Kyle Wiltshire, all got traded away from the Houston Rockets. That's because they drafted Isaiah Hartenstein late in the draft. They signed Nene and a great signing in P.J. Tucker. And they also took in Deron Hillard. Wait, what? Deron Hillard. Oh, no, this was the three-team trade. So Hillard came back. I don't know anything about Deron Hillard right now.
I think they acquired Hillard and then sent him out.
All right.
I don't know.
Chris Paul is pretty much the main guy you have to focus on, the fact that they got him. And Tim Quarterman from Portland. I like that pick up too. So you have Chris Paul and James Harden and PJ Tucker pretty much are the three key pieces coming in right now. Well, of course, James Harden's staying, but Chris Paul and PJ Tucker, two big players coming in right now.
Yeah, I would say you didn't lose anything. Cap Beverly hurts because he's a great 3-and-D player at the guard position. Decker was kind of an anomaly to this point. Lou Williams, you have a very similar player in Eric Gordon. You got your wing defender in PJ Tucker. He's going to be a great fit next to Trevor Ariza. You didn't lose Ryan Anderson, which all the time he was getting shopped, I was like, no, don't trade him. He fits what you do so well. And they still have Clint Capella.
Right.
That's a very, very scary team in Houston. Very scary.
Top three in the West again?
Yes. It's very hard to bet against San Antonio not being the number 2, but they certainly have the pieces to challenge San Antonio for the number 2 seed. And I think they could give the Warriors a scare, but I don't think they could beat them. They could scare them, though.
Moving on to the Indiana Pacers.
Big old F. They get a giant F.
A big old F from Josh McCauley. So they draft TJ Leaf. Good piece.
Fine piece.
Good piece. Ike Anigbo, another fine piece in the draft. He's probably not going to play. Via free agency, Darren Collison. You got your point guard, I guess. And then, first of all, you lost Jeff Teague because he skedaddled out to Minnesota. You lost Monte Ellis because you waived him. Then you traded Paul George for a bucket of basketballs and a rim because you got Victor Oladipo in his god-awful contract and a Domantas Sabonis who might have a future in this league, but probably not for long. So, awful offseason for the Indiana Pacers. They could have just sent him somewhere else that gave him a better package for Paul George, and everybody would have had a much different thought process about the Pacers this offseason. But they refused to trade him to the East, and then they traded him for nothing. So,
yeah,
sad.
I mean, Clarkson and Randall would have been fine It really would have.
Right. You could have gotten so much more, even from the West. Even you had the Clarkson Randall deal. You had so many more deals waiting, and then you go and be like, yeah, you work Victor Oladipo and Sabonis.
Yeah, it just. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, this is you want to know why?
Why?
Because Larry Bird's gone.
Yeah, he leaves and everything goes to shit.
So that's that. Do you want to go to the Clippers? You want to move on because we already talked about them a lot.
We talked about him a lot. We can probably skip him. I love the pickup is Sindarius Thornwell, but that's really all we got to say.
All right. Moving on to the LA Lakers. This is when it gets fun because they had the number 2 pick. They get the new reality star. Did you hear they're coming out with a new reality?
No, trust me, I heard.
Lonzo Ball, number 2 pick, the point guard out of UCLA. You got Kyle Kuzma out of Utah with the number 27 pick. Josh Hart out of Villanova with the number 30 pick. And then Brook Lopez in a trade. I like their offseason. Honestly, love it. Can't have complaints about it. Then they lost Nick Young to Golden State, but you didn't have enough.
That's fine.
Spots back. And then you traded away a bad contract to Mozgov and D'Angelo Russell, who would have lost time to Lonzo Ball anyways. So good offseason for the Warriors, or not Warriors, Lakers. Magic Johnson wins again. And we'll see if they are a bottom 5 team. I don't think they are, but if they are a bottom 5 team, probably not going to have their first round pick next year.
I thought that they weren't going to be a bottom 5 team, and then the West happened. I mean, look, they're probably going to lose a lot of games in their conference, and it's really not going to be their fault. I mean, the West just got insane. So they've put themselves in a position, I think, regardless of their record next year, to be the free agent player in next offseason that Magic wants them to be. Because look, if they had just been, absolutely awful. I mean, look, okay, if they win like 15 games and Ball stinks and Randall takes a step back and Ingram is a non-factor and all this stuff, then yeah, they probably won't be a big player. But look, if they win 28 to 35 games, that's enough. And I think Paul George is pretty committed regardless. Obviously, if the Thunder win a title, he might stay. But I don't think that's going to happen. Actually, it's not. I can say that pretty definitively. It's not. You could probably pencil Paul George in, and then
whatever happens, happens.
So, LeBron, I don't know.
We will have to wait and see. Magic Johnson's going to work his magic, and we'll just have to wait and see. Memphis Grizzlies, this team is another team in my mind that is just stuck. They have nowhere to go. It sucks for them that they're in the West now, of course. They're not even going to be a playoff team anymore. They drafted Ivan Rabb with good value at 35 and Dylan Brooks at 45. They signed Ben McLemore for a crap ton of money from Sacramento.
Well, okay, he's getting $5 million a year. That's not a crap ton.
For Ben McLemore.
But, it's a chance to show off what he's got. Because the grind father is going to leave, and you lost the other grind father whose number is getting retired, which is pretty cool.
I love that. So Zach Randolph, Zebo, his number's going to get retired now in Memphis. Probably after he retires or like now?
I'd imagine probably after he retires.
Also, they're next, so we'll get to that in a second. Zach Randolph, so he's out to Sacramento. So you kind of just swapped Zach Randolph for Ben McLemore, and you didn't get any better. So the Memphis Grizzlies are going to be a lottery team in the West next year.
Yeah, I think they're okay with that. I think they know it's up. It's over.
Moving on. Miami Heat, Pat Riley town. No taxes. First of all, they didn't get Gordon Hayward. That was their big piece they wanted. They didn't get him. So, good draft. Got Bam Adebayo at number 14. Re-signed Dion Waiters. They're probably going to re-sign now. James Johnson, I believe his name. Yeah, James Johnson. You already have Tyler Johnson on a long-term deal, which Tyler Johnson's a perfect example of how crazy the money was last year and how much money he got. He was great for the Seattle Twin squad, knockdown shooter, but not worth what he's making. Then they got Kelly Olynyk from the Boston Celtics for, again, not worth what he's making, but we'll see how it goes.
Dion Waiters, not worth what he's making.
But we'll see how it goes. Miami, you said it already, but they're just this organization that can really just pull anything from anywhere and somehow make it work. And finally, Chris Bosh being waived, and his career is probably over, right? There's no question about it. And his number one will be raised to the rafters at American Airlines Arena. And it's a sad day in the NBA.
You know what? As much as I hated the Heat when that happened, even when he was in Toronto, and I never liked Toronto, I love me some Boshosaurus Rex. I loved him. He was everything I wanted in a player. He was the stretch four before it was cool. This is a weird angle. Please stop.
I'm sorry. I'm fixing up my charger.
Yeah, I loved Chris Bosh. I hate the way it ended. I feel bad for him, but those things happen, and I'm glad that Miami's honoring him. Yeah, I think he definitely deserves it.
And moving on to one of our champions next year. We have them winning next year, so that's got to happen. Milwaukee Bucks. DJ Wilson was drafted. They re-signed Snelly Cat, didn't lose anybody. So Greek Freak and company just charging on as one. I got loyalty in my DNA, as quoted from the Greek Freak, actually from Kendrick Lamar. But, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, look, they gave Snelly Cat a crap ton of money, but he fits what they're doing. They're linked to Derrick Rose. It wouldn't be the worst fit in the world when Giannis isn't running the point, if he accepts less money, and if he's willing to, come off the bench. The thing that I keep hearing is a potential sign and trade, and oh man, I love this rumor. Sign and trade Rose to Milwaukee and going back to New York, Delhi. And I love everything about it. I love it so much. I can't wait for it to happen. I'm gonna be jumping for joy if it does.
It hurts my brain to think about Delhi. I hate him with a passion.
Yeah, I know.
But that's already been established. Quite possibly, we've said this about one team already, but quite possibly a team that has set themselves up to have a lot of success this year is the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have an insane starting five right now. They drafted Justin Patton. They already have Cat. They already have now Jimmy Butler after trading for him. You lost some good pieces. You had to get rid of Dunn, Levine, Rubio, Omer Caspi, Jordan Hill, and Pekovic. But that team is damn good. You still have Teague. You still have Taj Gibson now. My goodness, this team is supposed to be good in the next 2 years.
Yeah, what happened to Pekovic? Remember when he was the next big thing?
Yeah, and then he faded off the face of the earth.
Not this year, but next year, the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to give the Warriors a serious run for their money because they are the antithesis of the Warriors, and they have the ability to hurt them exactly where they need to make it work. I cannot wait to see maybe in the playoffs this year. Who knows? And certainly I don't think Minnesota's ready, but Towns going to work down low against Draymond Green and just taking advantage of that. Butler's a guy who can take out one of either Thompson or Durant. I think you would probably deploy him on Durant and deploy Butler on Thompson, make Thompson beat you. And, Teague is a good floor general for what he is, and they didn't really give up. I mean, they didn't give up anything other than money. They really didn't pay him all that much money to come be their point guard. Boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy. Taj Gibson, Gorgie Jang is going to be a great rotation. Not this year. Next year, they're going to give the Warriors a serious run for their money.
Yeah, just so powerful. There's really nothing you can really do about it.
And the perfect coach. Perfect coach.
Yes, absolutely. Moving on, about halfway through right now. New Orleans Pelicans. So they already made the huge trade in last year to go get DeMarcus Cousins from Sacramento. You waived Tim Frazier you lost Tim Frazier, excuse me, in a deal at the draft. Not very important, but you re-signed Drew Holiday, and I love the connection that the Pelicans and Drew Holiday have. You know, all the issues that Drew Holiday had to go through last year with his wife, and all their family had just, it was an awful season for him. And then they signed him to a very generous deal, but he deserves it. And then you also have Frank Jackson as well. And Josh is gone again. So we're going to keep going. Frank Jackson out of Duke. I like the pickup. He's going to be a backup point guard to Drew Holiday. And there's no question about how Pelicans, it's either win or bust, because you have Anthony Davis, you have DeMarcus Cousins, you re-signed Drew Holiday, you have Frank Jackson now, but you're in such a tough conference. This is a common theme that has been occurring throughout multiple of these younger Western teams, is you have all these good young talent, but you just don't have the full team sort of way to be able to bring you all the way into contention with the Spurs, with the Warriors, with the Rockets, with now the Thunder. And it's just not a pretty day to be a lesser team in the Western Conference, because based on those factors of you're young, but you can't compete because you don't have enough players to do so. You know, I don't think that Josh, you still have the two profiles up, by the way.
Oh my God, I hate this.
There it goes. You're good now.
I'm in the sanctity of my home, and the Wi-Fi is just bleh. I don't understand this.
I don't either. So I'm saying, Josh. Good?
What? Yep.
So what I'm saying is that the Pelicans re-signed Drew Holiday to a very good contract, and their connection that they have. Are you gone again? Oh, my God. Josh, you're killing me, bud. You are absolutely killing me right now. I don't know what this kid's problem is. He just doesn't have good internet, apparently. I'm sitting in my basement, and I'm still good. Probably because my brother works at a cable company, which helps a lot because, you know, you get good cable. But let's see how long this one takes, because the fact that Josh just can't have good Wi-Fi. And there is big news coming out from the Knicks side of things, and the Knicks are next. So we're going to have to wait for Josh McCullough to come back, because he is our resident Knicks expert, because the Knicks are so bad, and he is a Knicks fan. We'll give you the news right now as we're waiting for Josh. The Knicks have signed Tim Hardaway Jr. from Atlanta. I'm not going to leave Josh behind. We're going to the New York Knicks. I'm sorry, Annie, but I'm not leaving Josh behind. We are together in this about an hour in or so. I don't really know how long we're into this, but you got to stay with you, the true brethren. But regardless, this team, and I'm saying this team, is in the Knicks, is just screwed. They're screwed for life. But they're doing much better now because Phil Jackson's gone. They don't really have anybody to lead them, I should say. But Tim Hardaway Jr., 4-year offer sheet worth about $71+ million, and a final year salary of $19 million. And the Hawks now have 2 days to match it. We already talked about the Hawks and how they're kind of just blowing it all up and waiting for next year and waiting for the year after that. And here comes Josh again. But, you know, they're kind of – if I'm Atlanta, I really question if I really do sign this offer sheet and not just let him go, because you already let everybody else go. Why not just let Tim Hardaway Jr. go as well? The Hawks, we've said this before, they have lost Jose Calderon, Paul Millsap, Dwight Howard, Brian Kelly, and Mike Dunleavy, and really didn't get anybody back, and they waived everybody. So Might as well just let him go too and just start from scratch. That's my personal opinion about it. We're waiting for Josh. Apparently he's almost back, but I'm not sure. But the Knicks kind of in no man's land right now. They're gonna be awful. It's gonna be bad for the sport of basketball. They drafted Frank Ntilikina out of France as a point guard. They re-signed Ron Baker to a deal worth about, let me get the number again because I already lost it. Ron Baker was for just a 2-year deal. Oh, there. It was the the team option after the rookie deal. So Ron Baker will be coming back to the Knicks. And now possibly getting Tim Hardaway Jr. for a lot of money. $71 million on a 4-year deal for a player that I don't know about many other people, but I don't see him as worth that much money to go to the Knicks. They will need to renounce the Knicks will need to renounce the $29.7 million financial cap hold of Derrick Rose to sign Tim Hardaway Jr. to have room. So they'll need to renounce Derrick Rose and let him go for good. But we'll see how that one goes. Tim Hardaway Jr., career 11 points a game, 2.1 rebounds a game, and 1.5 assists. And last year, a career year, 14.5 points, 2.5 rebounds, 2 assists. And so we'll have to see if he does go to the Knicks. Now, remember, he was drafted by the Knicks and started his career with them for the first 2 years. And then he went to Atlanta for 2 years after that. It was a part of the 3-team trade that sent Jerry Grant to the Knicks, Kelly Oubre to the Wizards, and the Washington Wizards traded a 2015 first-round pick to the Hawks when he went to the Hawks. And he's been up and down from the D-League, and now he's going to get a lot of money from the Knicks for, I don't know, whatever it comes out to be, about $71 million. But that's a lot of money for a player of his caliber. So we'll have to really just wait and see how this goes. For the Knicks, they're in kind of no man's land, as I said. Lost Justin Holiday to Chicago. I don't know where Josh is. This is taking a long time. He might be dead. You never know. If Annie's still watching, let me know if he's dead. That would be the awfulest thing in the world, but great. Because then we have to get to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And Josh's Wi-Fi is legit dead, he says. So I'm going to share a link to Josh. And I understand those who are chanting to leave Josh behind, but I have never been one to leave people behind. Wait. Oh!
I did it.
You did it, Josh. I'm so proud.
I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm in my house and the Wi-Fi is just like, nah, I don't feel like working.
Well, it's like the Hawks who are like, nah, I don't want to sign. It's like the Knicks, who are like, nah, we don't want to be bad. So we're going to go sign Tim Hardaway Jr. to a 4-year offer sheet.
Yeah, I had a little mini freak out, so I'm glad that the thing wasn't working. I don't. Why? You know what? Because Atlanta's not going to match too. Because they're like, it's over.
I was just saying.
You gave up on this player 2 years ago. You gave up on him, and now you're going to give him $18 million a year.
I was saying while you were gone that you were going to be so pissed about this and that it's such a waste of time and money. And now you're just confirming what I had to say. So thank you, Josh.
Why? And now your draft pick is good in a system that you're not even running anymore. I don't know what's going on.
There's a new song that came out and there's a number on it. I think it's by DJ Khaled, but the number of the song is a very important number that you need to watch out for. All I'm saying.
What?
Never mind. I'll just move on. I'll text you it. How about that?
That's fair enough. Okay.
All right. But anyways, we're gonna move on because we can to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah.
They've not had a bad offseason. They traded for Paul George for a bucket of basketballs and a rim. They got Patrick Patterson in free agency from Toronto. And they also drafted Terrence Ferguson out of the USFA. So, setting yourselves up.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would have liked to have seen that they didn't do was add Rudy Gay. But, yeah, they had a nice offseason. And even if Paul George leaves, you can give up anything. Actually, you gain yourself some financial flexibility.
Exactly.
Sam Presti, I mean, good for him. He did a really good job.
Moving on to the Orlando Magic, drafted Jonathan Isaac at number 6. That's a player that I'm not big on, but a lot of people are. His athleticism is incredible. 3-and-D guy, but we'll have to see how it really goes overall.
Yeah, it's a questionable fit. There's a lot of concerns about him. Normally, a guy with that skill set would be in the conversation to go number 1, and he wasn't even close to that conversation. I mean, he wasn't even considered a top 3 player or top 5 player. And obviously, going number 6 is outside of the top 5. They lost Jody Meeks, which they were really bad at shooting threes last year. And last time I checked, just about the only thing Jody Meeks does is shoot threes. So I don't know.
But they got Aaron Gordon and Vucevic, so they're good.
Yeah, I mean, they're still kind of stuck. I don't think Elfrid Payton's their answer at point guard. They didn't address that situation. And certainly, I mean, look at George Hill, who we'll get to in a little bit, was willing to go to a team that's maybe not going to be as competitive next year. I'm surprised a phone call wasn't made there. I'm surprised a reunion with J.J. Redick wasn't discussed because he could help them with their three-point shooting. They didn't address any of their needs, and maybe they're waiting back, trying to stockpile assets and be competitive 5 years from now when there's actually going to be a window to be competitive. But, yeah, they didn't do anything.
Philadelphia 76ers were going to focus on them or going to skip it because we already talked about them?
I mean, they are set up, much to my chagrin, because I don't like them, but they are set up. I'm excited. I'm excited. If all these guys are healthy and they're all playing together, I can't wait to see what they are. I'm very excited.
Fun to watch. You also got Amir Johnson, a big run protector, especially for when Embiid is hurt, which is bound to happen next year. And J.J. Redick, who can knock down shots. You think of J.J. Redick with Fultz and Simmons and Dario Saric. Boy, oh boy.
Yeah, and I mean, they could still move Okafor for another asset. And it's not very often you have a team with 2 legitimate Rookie of the Year candidates. So, yikes.
And by the way, some developing story. Gordon Hayward's in Boston now, getting ready for the press conference.
Well, I mean, we knew he was going there. By the way, these sign and trade talks are dead. They have not spoken since the AM, and the Celtics are shopping the players around to the rest of the NBA, seeing if they can get a better deal elsewhere.
Yeah, I don't know why they haven't just been doing that in the first place.
Yeah, you don't have to give Utah anything. Go get other assets. Makes total sense to me.
Stop being too nice. I'm thinking about like Houston and being like, oh yeah, we'll give you a sign and trade for Chris Paul. No, just take him.
I mean, the only thing I'll say about that is I think that was more orchestrated by Chris Paul. And I heard someone say, I think it was on ESPN New York, they said that was Chris Paul being nice. No, it wasn't. It was him understanding that if he opted into the final year of his contract, he set himself up to make even more money next year by taking advantage of the supermax that he fought for so hard. So what he did was say, I don't want to be in LA anymore. I think the Clippers are done. I want to go somewhere else. So he told the Clippers, hey, I'm going to leave anyway, but to put me in the position that I want to be in going forward, which is putting myself in a position for a bigger supermax, I'm going to opt into my deal and you're going to trade me. So that way you at least get something back. So it wasn't Paul being nice. It was him putting himself in the position he wanted to be in. He didn't have to do it. He could have taken less money and just left. But he understood, and I think he looked at it. He's a smart guy. I think he understood that the way the salary cap is structured and the assets Houston has, that the Houston Rockets, I said Astros, that the Rockets weren't really going to have to give up anything of consequence to make this work, and they didn't. I mean, other than Patrick Beverley, they really didn't give up anything. He's going to make more money because of it. So, yeah.
Also, point to be made for Celtics fans out there. There was a lot of question as to what number is Gordon Hayward going to wear.
I'm assuming he's 20.
Huh?
I'm assuming he's going to wear 20. I mean, I think the bridge is pretty much burned with Ray Allen. I don't understand why. I don't. It makes no sense to me. His number should be in the rafters. Everyone needs to get over themselves. He was allowed to leave, and he left because he saw the writing on the wall. Get over yourselves. You wouldn't have won in 08 without him. So everyone, the fans, the players, stop being butthurt. But anyway, he's probably going to wear 20 because I think they're pooing all over Ray Allen. They shouldn't. He shouldn't be allowed to wear 20, but I think he's going to. Anyway.
See, I'm going to say this. I am in no way looking bad on Ray Allen.
Yeah, he's behind you, obviously.
Right. He's with the big three right there. Yeah. I don't see an issue with him leaving. I'm not mad at him. I'm not anything with him. He picked a good spot to leave, and he did. He's a smart player. Do I think his number deserves to be put up on the Raptors? No. Based on the factor of you won a championship, I understand that, but he didn't do much else. You hit a lot of threes.
I mean, for most other teams, I would agree with you. However, you look at the history of the Celtics retiring numbers, the floor is very low in terms of things you have had to have done.
I agree, but that's an issue I have. That's an issue I already have in the next spot is the fact of how the floor is so low, which is why they haven't retired a jersey number in a long, long time. It's because nobody else has earned anything. They're going to retire Paul Pierce's number. They're probably going to retire KG's number, but they're not going to retire
which doesn't make sense to me because KG, other than the one title, you could argue he also contribute as much.
I agree.
So if his number goes up, I think Allen's number has to go up. I think the only thing that would keep Allen's number from going up is this feud.
Yeah, and so where I was getting to in the first place is Gordon Hayward's Instagram now has Boston Celtics number 20 in his bio. So looks like he's going to win number 20.
That's a shame. I think that's a shame. I don't like Ray Allen very much as a player. Sure, he's a fine dude. I don't like him very much as a player. I think that's incredibly disrespectful. I really don't think they should be doing that. But anyway,
can you also quickly explain? Because I know my stuff, but I don't know this. With the offer sheet for Tim Hardaway Jr., right? We have Ian Begley and Adrian Wojnarowski coming out and saying it contains a 15% trade kicker. What is it that means? So that not only me, but anybody else can learn what that means for the next offer sheet to Tim Hardaway Jr.
So a trade kicker is if a player is traded, they're owed.
Oh, my God. You're gone again. This is awful. You are killing me with this, Joshua. Annie, I don't know what to say. You might as well just move on because this is awful. This is not good. Josh McCauley sucks. Josh McCauley is bad at life. His Wi-Fi is bad. His teams are all bad. Except for the Somerset Patriots, which he's wearing. He works for them. I heard they're good. They're doing a good job. But this is just sad. Josh, you're killing me, man. I know you're telling me. I know. I deserve better than this. I deserve better than just sit around and waiting for Josh to just get his stuff together. So we're gonna move on because we can. And there he is. He's coming back. He's making it. Don't worry. Oh my God, you are awful.
I don't know what's going on, but anyway, that's what a trade kicker is. It's a bonus for getting traded. I don't know why it's a thing.
Moving on, let's get through this fairly quickly so that we can move on without any more disturbances.
Yeah, really.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams left. So let's focus on that. Phoenix Suns drafted Josh Jackson number 4. Lost Leandro Barbosa. That was about it. What do you got?
That's it. They're building for the future. Jackson was a great pick. Yeah, they're staying young. Don't be surprised if Bledsoe or Knight gets moved. That's it.
Portland Trail Blazers. Zach Collins was picked. Caleb Swanigan. So they went 2 bigs. I love the 2 draft picks. They held on to all their they didn't have any free agents. They held on to their core. Lost Tim Quarterman and waived Festus Ezeli, but that was about it.
Yeah. Oh, great. They leveraged their 3 first-round draft picks appropriately, and I think it's going to pay dividends. They're obviously a playoff team. They're a 6 or 7 seed. I love their coach. Terry Stotts, to me, is a very underrated head coach in the NBA, and they're going to make some noise. Are they a championship contender? No, but you know what? There are 3 teams that could win a championship next year, and it's really like 1.5. It's Golden State and then like 25% San Antonio, 25% Cleveland to make up the other half. I mean, that's really it. So
you see the odd.
Not a championship contender, playoff team that is set up going forward at least to retain Damian Lillard when he becomes a free agent if he so chooses.
Did you see the odds for, right now for the NBA Finals?
Isn't it like Golden State? Like if you bet $1 for them to win, you actually owe the casino like $100 because it's such an easy bet, and then everyone else is like what 15-2 or something like.
So I think the Cavs are like 15-2. Then San Antonio and Boston are both at 12-1. Boston's really, I think, is only really at that spot instead of a Western Conference team, based on the fact that they're in the East.
Yeah, I mean the Celtics are probably the 7th or 8th best team in the NBA, but the second best team in their conference because their conference is a pile of dung. So yeah, if they weren't in the East, they would be much further down.
I agree fully. Speaking of a team that is looking towards the future, you already talked about the Phoenix Suns looking towards the future. The Sacramento Kings, they're setting themselves up for a good future right now. Good draft. De'Aaron Fox, Justin Jackson, Harry Giles, Frank Mason. Great draft. You signed George Hill. Great signing out of Utah. You signed a experienced Zach Randolph. Imagine Harry Giles running from Zach Randolph. And you got rid of Ben McLemore. You got rid of Langston Galloway, Darren Collison. You waived Aaron Aflalo. So getting young, getting ready for the future. You got Buddy Hield last year from the the Pelicans. You're looking good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm uncomfortable. The Kings are making smart moves. They're gonna be moderately competitive this year, and I mean, they could sneak in at the back end if everything plays right, if the rookies contribute, and they're also set up long term. Personally, I would have liked to have seen them just continue to try to be a dumpster fire. Let the kids trial by fire, get another good player next year. Especially because you might lose your 2019 pick, depending on what happens with the Lakers pick this year in conveying to Boston or not. I would have liked to have seen them continue to try and stink and grab one more asset in case you don't have the 2019 pick. But they've got like an 18-year playoff drought. It's not that long. I think it's like 12 or 13 years. It's a long playoff drought that they're trying to break, and they're trying to show that they're at least somewhat coming back. So, I mean, good moves. They're under – the biggest problem for me is these veteran guys that you're paying a decent amount of money to are all on multi-year deals. So you're going to be feeling the effects of the Randolph contract for 2 years. You're going to be feeling the effects of the Hill contract for 3 years. Even if you waive these guys, you still have some financial obligation to them. And they're all at positions where you just drafted young guys. You signed a starting point guard who will start right after you drafted your starting point guard of the future at 5. You signed a power forward who's probably going to be your starting power forward for 82 games. Right when you drafted, especially a guy like Harry Giles, who we really need to see what he is. He's not going to get to play as much because of this signing. Jackson will probably be okay just because of the position he plays. So, I mean, look, they'll be competitive. If it was me, I wouldn't have done it, but the Kings aren't operating in a vacuum. Like, they understand at some point they have to make the playoffs, especially with the new arena. I don't think they want to suck with the new arena opening, so that's probably why.
Yeah. The Kings haven't made the playoffs in, 15 years? The Spurs make it pretty much every year. The Spurs are up next, the number 2 team in the West. They drafted Derek White and Jerron Blossom game. They re-signed Patty Mills to a pretty big deal, I might say.
Mm-hmm.
But locked and loaded, ready to go. Part 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah. I mean, I love the Derek White pick. Love it.
One thing that worries me is LaMarcus Aldridge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're into him with a lot of money. He didn't provide last year. He just didn't. Simple as that. He got hurt, didn't provide. What is he going to be this year? It's going to be the key question to if you're going to win. That's the simplest question. LaMarcus Aldridge is going to be the point of no return for the Spurs. If he's in, they're good. If he's out, they're not so good. And then the question of, can Manu and Tony Parker stay healthy? They both had injury concerns at the end of the year. They both are leading the ball handling. So what are you going to do if one of them goes down? That's why you get Patty Mills back. So you're setting yourself up that well there. Derek White's a good pickup in the draft at number 25 as well. So I do like the pickup of Derek White, who is a 6'5" point guard out of Colorado. Incredible story. We talked about this in the last podcast.
Incredible defender, all Pac-12 first team defensively, which is that's hard to do. There were a lot of damn good players in the Pac-12 this year.
Yeah, and the other thing about Derek White is the fact of he started in D3 and he worked his way up to D1 and now he's in the NBA. So good on you, guy. But moving on, anything you want to say about the Spurs? I mean, they're just good.
Yeah, I mean, they have a couple of restricted free agents I got to figure out. Simmons has some interest other places. Is Manu coming back? I would venture to think probably not, but that's why they brought back Patty Mills. Yeah, you hit it on the head. If Aldridge plays well, they're the number 2 team in the West. No ifs, ands, or buts. If he doesn't play as well, you're opening it up for Houston and a little bit more of a reach. But if Oklahoma City can gel, potentially Oklahoma City. But if Aldridge is not himself, you're opening it up for Houston.
I forgot about one important signing. Rudy Gay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was big. I think that's big. That's a huge thing for him and a contingency if Aldridge is ass again next year.
Yeah. There's no other way to put it. But another big signing for the San Antonio Spurs, who you look at it every year and you're just like, how? How do they do it? I don't know. Rudy Gay, 2 years, 17 mil around there, give or take a few $100,000, which I mean is a lot. But next, Toronto Raptors. We already talked about them. They re-signed Serge Ibaka and Kyle Lowry, lost PJ Tucker, but we already talked about them. The Utah Jazz. Let's get into this a little bit because you lose Gordon Hayward, you lose George Hill. You traded away Trey Lyles. But then you also have good pieces coming back in Joey Ingles, Ricky Rubio. You drafted a great Donovan Mitchell out of Louisville. And then you have the kind of pick that, personally in my mind, he's going to be on the bench at the start of the year, even after being such a low draft pick, Nigel Williams-Goss out of Gonzaga. Yep. So, I mean, they got young, but they also have a lot of money and a lot of different players.
Yeah, they do. And it's ultimately going to come down to if there is a sign and trade with the Celtics, what piece they would get back. If they get Jay Crowder back, then obviously they're not the same as they were with Hayward, but certainly I think they could still be in a position to potentially make a run at a low seed in the playoffs out west. If they end up not getting anything back and there is no sign and trade, then obviously they're set back a couple of years. I loved all their draft picks. All three, I think, will be on the team, be contributors next year. It depends on what they can do to replace Gordon Hayward. We'll see. But certainly that has set them back from a potential budding powerhouse out west to a 7-8 seed, if not a lottery team.
Moving on, final team in the NBA. We're going to go back to the Eastern Conference. Team number 30 out of the nation's capital, the Washington Wizards, signed Jody Meeks, outside shooter. You also re-signed Otto Porter Jr. after matching the offer sheet, and you got Tim Frazier in a trade from the Pelicans. So the Wizards are set up and ready to go for another season of battling for the number 3 and 2 spots in the East.
Yeah, and I mean, if they're consistent next year at all, they could be the 2 seed. I mean, Brad Beal's got to be consistent. John Wall's got to be more consistent. We got to see what Otto Porter can do if he could, put the money out. If he put the money where his mouth is, I guess. If he could walk the walk, he's been talking the talk. He's going to get $25 million a year. He's going to be the highest paid player on that team. That's insane. They brought in Jody Meeks to be a sniper. What does Gortat have left in the tank? Their front court is an issue and is a glaring concern for me. They played well last year. Can they keep it up? The backcourt is phenomenal. I like the Wizards a whole lot. I like Scott Brooks. I think he's a good developmental guy. Not so much X's and O's guys, but developmental guy. So if he can push these players to their full potential, specifically Brad Beal and Otto Porter, the Wizards will be the number 2 seed in the East and could make some noise. They're not going to dethrone Cleveland, but they could make some noise.
Right. And, it's going to be a battle between them and the Celtics for the 2 seed. It's there for the taking.
I mean, honestly, it might not even be a battle for the 2 seed. It might be a battle for the 1 seed because, look, last year, I mean, Cleveland didn't care about their seeding, and they did. We can be honest about that. And
all right, so instead of saying battle for the 2 seed, we'll say battle for the second best team in the conference. Yeah,
battle for the second best team in the conference, but not in terms of seeding. I mean, especially with the East is as bad as it is now. Look, Butler's gone. George is gone. The East is significantly worse. Carmelo might be on the way out west. Cleveland could be the 4 seed, and they'd still go to the finals. I mean, they really don't care. And if it comes down to getting guys as much rest as possible, because it's an older team now, Cleveland will be okay slipping to the 3 or the 4 because you know what? It doesn't matter. They're still going to ram through everyone else. And if they're the 3 or the 4, they're just going to get Washington and Boston out of the way faster. And then, the Eastern Conference Finals is going to be more of a joke. So don't be surprised if Boston's the number 1 again, or maybe if the Wizards make a run at the 1. I could see it shaping up. Boston's the 1, Washington's the 2, Cleveland could be the 3, and Cleveland will still go to the finals.
Right. And there's pretty much no question about it. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, free agency, the big pieces are pretty much done. There's going to be a little bit more of a focus on the restricted free agents, possible sign-in trades, like we had with maybe Gordon Hayward, probably not. We had it with Gallinari, so there's still a few more pieces to be moved there. But as it's setting up right now, this is pretty much your NBA right now as it stands. So it's a very, very, very heavily favored to the West. They could probably fill 2 All-Star teams before the Eastern Conference fills 1.
Yeah.
Easy. But it's definitely going to be a fun year, especially if you're a fan of the Eastern Conference, because you're going to have an easy year, except if you're the Knicks because you suck. So, anything else to add, Josh? I mean, we'll be back next week probably to talk about more restricted free agents, and we'll bring in more topics to the program instead of just me and Josh blabbing about free agency and trades and things like that, because Then the free agency will be over, and it'll be more about the summer league and getting into off season, into workouts and things like that. So we'll actually have topics like max contracts and things like that, how important they are, how important of a role they play. Bird rights are another thing that people don't really understand, but they're important. So
I have two final things. Number one, when is the Hayward press conference? Is it tomorrow?
They haven't fully announced it yet. They haven't officially announced, but it's going to be either today or tomorrow or the next day.
Okay. That makes sense because even though, I mean, obviously he's going to be a Celtic, it'd just be weird for me if they had like his intro press conference before he's officially signed, because as of right now, like they can't legally sign him. So this probably means that they'll nothing's going to happen, but this probably means that they'll be making a move in the next day or two. I don't think they would have the press conference before he can actually put pen on paper.
Right. He is in Boston.
He's in Boston. Number two, I love these new the new two-way contracts as part of the new CBA. So one of the things that they did is you have 15 players, 13 on NBA deals, 2 on two-way deals. So when they're in the D League, instead of like being fair game for anyone to sign, their rights are owned by the parent NBA team, and they can be shuttled back and forth, and they can be in the NBA for up to 45 days before their contract would have to get upgraded to an NBA contract, and you would have to make a personnel move. I love them. The Knicks have already signed Luke. I think it's Luke Cornett. I think his name is from is it Vanderbilt? Vanderbilt, yeah, 7-footer who shoots threes and block shots. He's in a two-way contract. Rick Barry's son, Kenyon Barry, shoots free throws underhand from Florida. Was the SEC? Yeah, was the SEC Sixth Man of the Year. He's on a two-way contract. Personally, I love it because I think they're gonna be two fun guys to watch. But I love that this will allow the G League to kind of actually become what it was supposed to be, which is a place to develop your players. Because now, instead of having to run overseas to get more money and to get more playing time, players can actually be stashed away in the G League, and teams don't have to risk losing their rights. So maybe with the influx of cash and with these new two-way contracts, maybe the G League will actually become a developmental place for the NBA. So that's very cool. Something to look forward to.
So another two names that I think of, well, let's just go with the one because it's really a name that has been there for a long time. Bronson Koenig is another player out of Wisconsin. Great shooter, great ball handler, veteran guy out of college. If you consider veteran, he graduated. But Bronson Koenig out of Wisconsin, he's on a two-way deal with the Bucks. So that's another good spot for him right there. So, and that's the type of thing we'll talk about next week. And when we get into these topical podcasts, more of what really makes the NBA tick in terms of deals, in terms of salary cap, things like that. And we could even branch out of the NBA if we really want to, because the NFL's coming up, college sports. UMass women's basketball is back on campus, by the way. They are moved in now. So
fantastic.
Let's get it. So, but I don't know. I just figured I'd say that. Other than that, we'll see you guys next week. That's pretty much it. That's all we got.
Bye, guys.
Bye.